Charles Dickens. Charles Dickens was the most important and famous writer of England during the 19th century. He was born in Portsmouth in February 1812 and died in Gad's Hill Place in June 1870 in England. Through his writings, he wanted to expose social aspects at that time, such as industrializing society and the working condition in factories, conditions that he lived when he was 10 years old. Dickens, in some way, was educating and making people be critical about what was happening at that period of time, using his engaging writings. He knew how to be seductive about relevant issues. He has been praised for his realism by known writers such as George Orwell and Tom Wolfe. Something interesting that he did was to show the issues in the history and make people wonder about the situation and have their own opinion instead of saying governments what to do. His books are some of the most sold throughout history. Some of his famous books are Great Expectation, David Copperfield, Little Dorrit, Oliver Twist, and The Pickwick Papers. Oliver Twist was his second book and it was published by Parks. It was the first novel in England in which a child was the main character. The main topic in this novel was the child labor and the use of children to commit crimes. The story is basically about a child who was named Oliver Twist. This child lost his mother when he was born. His mother was a wealthy woman who had had sex with a man out of marriage. As a consequence of that, she had to bear Oliver in an orphanage. The only thing Oliver kept about her was a gold medallion. Oliver grew up in this place, starving with other children. One day, Oliver asked for more meal and he was kicked out the orphanage. Oliver went to London where he met Jack Dawkins, a pickpocket. Jack offered Oliver a place to live. There it was Fagin, an old man who was the leader of a gang. He taught Oliver how to steal, but Oliver was an innocent boy. In the first adventure to steal, Oliver was caught. This issue was forgiven and Oliver had the chance to live with the wealthy man he had tried to steal. There, Oliver discovered that that man was his grandfather. However, Oliver did not have how to prove it because the medallion he had about her mother was on hands of Fagin. Oliver was adopted by Bills and Fagin because they had the fear Oliver could speak about the place they were hidden. They obliged Oliver to help them steal his grandfather. At the end, Oliver could return with his original family and it was a happy ending. Now it's time to play. We are going to play again about a part of the history of Oliver Twist's book. So go to the description of this video and play the game. Then get back. Now let's analyze the perspective of the author, Charles Dickens, in this book. We can appreciate the social situation people lived at that time. Dickens focuses in world overload, child exploitation, poverty, and prosperity. There were people who wanted to get money using other people, having them in bad conditions. Also, the author shows and denounces child abuse in orphanages. There was crime, pickpocketing, and marginalization in the cities. The migration from the countryside to cities caused crime in these places. This is illustrated with Oliver when he was to London. In fact, the justice was severe because even children were jailed and punished, as Oliver almost was. It is seen from Dickens' perspective that there were higher and lower society. There were wealthy and powerful people, as Oliver's family, and poor and needed people, as in the case of Bill, Fagin, and Nancy in the book. People who were in bad conditions thought that as they were poor, they had the right to take belongings of others and distribute the wealth instead of calling it theft. This was something that caught my attention, how the author exposes Fagin and some of poor people's thoughts. Bringing this issue to the society in general, it happens nowadays. There are a lot of poverty. There is bad treatment in some places to children. Although this issue had decreased, there is inequality, there is bad conditions to work and children exploitation. There are people who had had a difficult life and others that the conditions are different. To be more exact and put an example, the migration of Venezuelan people in Colombia evidences this issue. Venezuelan people are hired with lower salaries. Some of their conditions are bad. Some children are used to ask money. There are people who sell their body, as Nancy in the book, the prostitute. The invitation that Charles Dickens makes to us is to be critical and act against injustice and some social situations that we live and consider normal, but they are not.